Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. I have with me a Marshal GS Bedi. Sir, firstly, Namaskar, welcome to the show.
Namaskar, Adi. Always a pleasure.
Sir, ये पूरा AI summit, this, that, everything, everybody's talking about tech, 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 tech. I mean, it's a good time, I guess, to have a discussion on AI and quantum in warfare. दो तीन चीजें जो, of course, public domain में है, is that quantum communications, there is a lot of work which is happening. Laser-driven communications, there's a lot of work happening. Uh, there is AI enablement in terms of weapons tracking and whole lot of stuff which is taking place in that aspect. Sir, I mean, at the baseline, is it, how is the armed forces kind of adopting these things? So that's something that I want to first ask. And सबसे बड़ी चीज क्या है sir? How do you, I mean, bring this down to the ground level? कैसे करते हैं? So let's talk a little this and then let's get into what all systems we are taking in and this and that. Because for me, the biggest doubt is that how do you adopt it and how do you kind of implement it with the last soldier on the line?
Hi,
Soldier
Adi.
and whatever.
Yeah, of course. No. Very relevant topic. You talk of AI, you talk of quantum. These are the buzzwords. But definitely there is a requirement to understand them in greater depth. And when you say that, how do we implement them? Uh, Armed forces have been, adopting technology. And if you talk of Air Force in particular, I think Air Force has made the fastest advances world over. 1903, Wright brothers first took to air, heavier than air machine. 1908, probably the first Air Force was formed. And, the air power was visible in First World War itself. I mean, no other technology is advanced so much. And similarly, now subsequently, when we talk of, we'll probably touch upon a little multi-domain operations, that what it is. There is no exception or there is no choice that your artificial intelligence, how it will happen, we can see in a little detail. And the quantum, though in a nascent stage, quantum computers are yet not on the scene, but what can they do and what transformation will they begin? uh, you have to be prepared for it, from the very beginning. Armed forces, I think, are working hard to adopt. There are challenges; those challenges have to be overcome. But when we talk of their adoption, there is, like I said, no choice. We will have to do it. How it is to be done? There are institutional frameworks. There are, SOPs. Probably uh, there are defined ways how services will do it. Probably most of it will be in the confidential regime, but we can make an intelligent guess based on the open source information and like how best it can be done. By the world practices, you can't be very different. Okay, so the way it has been done in USA or China or elsewhere, it will probably be something on similar lines. So we can make a fair guess, but how exactly the Indian armed forces will adopt, what, where will they put it, how will they do it? Like I said, essentially will be confidential, but we can touch upon it broadly.
So, when you look at, see, for me, there are two, three things that I want to talk about. Ek to, we are talking about, the quantum aspect of it. We are talking about AI adoption. We are talking about, the implementation of these systems. And let me just pose a first question to you as far as the IACCS is concerned. Now, in that, we know there is a lot of use of artificial intelligence to, fasten the response times. So, when we talk about something like this, there is a fear which is there in the market with regards to how Israelis adopted it in their fencing with Gaza, where it was completely given to the technology to take a call, and what we are doing. So, what is the difference, sir? And can you help us understand the
Yeah,
interface?
see, I think this is firstly, it's a fallacy that artificial intelligence can replace human beings. In my opinion, it can complement their prowess. Okay, let's get to the brass tacks. We talk of OODA loop. Everything nowadays is OODA loop. Okay, you observe, you orient, you detect, and you act. Correct. Everything boils down to this, and any technology which helps in reducing the OODA loop is considered very good. Adi, I'm reminded of a small incident in 2001. Okay, in the United States Air Force, they were doing a networking conference. Or networking means not business networking, the equipment networking, from the war fighting point of view, that they were presenting the technology, which was to say that, okay, this is the technology coming, in different fields. And the United States Air Force chief then, General John Jumper, was present. He was being presented, and at the end of it, very profound statement, and it has stuck to me forever. He said, quote, "Sum of all wisdom is cursor over the target," unquote. Okay, what it means is, what it meant, that sum of all wisdom is cursor over the target. What is cursor over target? Is when you do bombing, no, air to ground bombing, or you target, or even any fire, you have a cursor, aiming point. Okay, and you put that aiming point on the target. Even if you see that laser, equipped gun, we have seen a lot of snipers. He's got a point, which he points at the target. That is his cursor. Okay, in my air to ground weaponry, the gun sight, that is my cursor. Okay, so, or LGB, when I deliver, there is a small thing which goes around, and you point exactly at target which you want to hit. That is my cursor. So essentially, he wasn't talking of this kind of cursor. What he meant was that any technology which does not help me see the target clearly, or does not lead me to the target clearly, is of no use. So you need to develop a technology which makes me see clearly in time and gives me valid information. And if all networking, all your this technology does not lead towards that, then it is of no use. And that led to one XML based software, which came to be known as cursor on target. Okay, COT. Okay, which essentially was, helped you do this. Now, same thing you extended today when we talk of OODA loop. What does observe mean? Okay, observe means that I need to have the information. Now, artificial intelligence is not fast Googling. You go to Google and he asks you, okay, you want more authentic information, get to my AI mode. And a lot of us end up thinking that this is what AI is all about. That is just fast search. AI is much more than that, right? Observe it means, now you see what happens is, nowadays the information proliferation is so much. There are so many sensors. Okay, you have information available through space, through drones, your ground network, your radars, your a whole lot of other sensors deployed. All this information, if it is going to confuse me, like, it is like this. You information is there, I want to know something, and you shove me into a library, with 1 million books, and you say all the information is here, please find it. You will have the information. Now, is it helping me? It's rather confusing me, because someone is telling me something, someone else is telling me something. Or you give me plethora of 100 articles, you say, sir, the right information is here in this 100 articles, and now I find they're contradicting in between. Something tells something, something tells something. How do I reach the correct? How do I know what is the correct information? Means probability of some information being more correct is very high. Information is correct or not is a very, is a very different aspect altogether, that is generally available in hindsight. But when I'm sitting there to decide or to take cognizance of that information, the probability of its being correct has to be very, very high. So, like, you say, you want to know the correct time, you definitely need three watches. If you just have two watches, you don't know which one is correct. If you have three watches or more than two, can you identify that, okay, which time is correct? Because most of them, large number of them, tend to agree with a particular time. What does AI do? AI can sift through this information at a very, very fast scale and present you the highly accurate probabilistic information which you can reliably act on. Okay, this is observe part. Okay, orient, then it tells you, what has been the change detection is something we are talking of. If the information available to me, and is legacy, is sometimes old, and then a very small change took place which my eyes can miss, then I will miss the information. So AI can tell me that, okay, this small change detection has taken place, so that I can orient myself correctly as to where to focus my resources better. Decide means it gives me options. It tells me, okay, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. Okay, when it presents more than one options to me, depending on my own experience, my own training, my own knowledge, that I can decide faster because it gives you ready-made options. And of course, it can act simultaneously in many fields. Now you talked of IACCS. IACCS is integrated air command and control system. Now it gets feed from so many places. Okay, the IACCS is with us since very long. Almost since 2010-11, when AI was not that strong. But what happens is the how that AI function works in that is that there are many fields giving it information. How does it differentiate that it is the same target being seen by four radars? Let's say four radars are seeing at the same target, because it will be visible to more than four radars. Let's say every radar has a range of 50, 60 kilometers. Okay, and all radars are seeing. Now, am I being presented four, five targets, or am I being presented just one target? That means the intelligent system in my command and control tells me that no, it's the same person. These four guys are seeing, so that I'm not overwhelmingly alarmed that, oh, a large force or four aircraft are coming at me. Okay, that is a function of AI, or intelligent thinking in IACCS system. Okay, then false positives, false negatives. Okay, false positives means something is not there, and it tells you through echoes of it, or through some other means. It uh, deletes it. And false negative means something is not there but likely to be there, so it has intelligent algorithm that, let's say, if it was observing a target for some time, coming from A to B in the air, and suddenly after 1 second the target has vanished without any reason, then it must have intelligence to see that no, there must be something. I mean, it can't just go off the air. Probably it will appear sometimes later. Probably some jamming devices have been used. Probably some shielding technique has been used, so that's not available. It will emerge sometimes later. Where can it emerge subsequently? Let's say aircraft is a different issue. Let's talk of ship in the sea. Okay, there are a lot of softwares now. A ship starts sailing from a port, and it's a ship of interest or object of interest, what we call. Okay, and your systems are tracking it. Some space system is tracking it, someone else is tracking it, and suddenly you find that it is gone blind. For example, we all heard that US carrier group, it comes in some waters, and then it's suddenly not visible. No, obviously it is not gone anywhere, it is there. It is just that you don't know. Now, an intelligent system based on algorithms will probably be able to predict that where are you most likely to find it. Otherwise, area of ambiguity can be very large. If I'm at to resee it after say 4 hours to 6 hours, or something like that. So these are the functions which AI or intelligent algorithms bring into your systems. So you can draw an analogy as to what IACCS does or employs. And yes, of course, advancements will be there. I'm talking of very old information, and what exactly new algorithms have come in, that definitely is probably confidential in nature, and there's no need to know that. It's important to say that all these systems which take in large amount of information must have the ability to decipher correct, most valuable and relevant information out of all that. You're on mute.
When
You're on
you,
mute.
yeah, when you look at this, the whole way that the AI structure and the AI is coming out, a lot of people kind of have hesitation in terms of data, because at the end of it, when in terms of network centric warfare, when you're looking at and the capability of not just our enemies but everybody around the world, including ourselves, is building towards basically anti-satellite warfare and this and that and the other. What is the redundancy level that we look at when we adopt such systems, sir?
No,
No,
data,
data. One is data, and second is, of course, systems and dependency on the system itself.
the reliability, you mean.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Right? So see, data is paramount. Your AI, complete AI system is being trained on data. Training for AI is data. Okay, so that is why a whole lot of people are busy in mining data. China has a policy of now, harvest now, decrypt later. Okay, it came that it just continues to collect data, because even if it's not able to decipher it now with strong classic algorithms, like RSA algorithm, or even AES 256, etc., they're very hard to break. But subsequently, with the emergence of quantum computer, they will be able to decrypt it, and now they can go through your patterns, your way of war fighting, your way of making SOP, your way of making strategies, doctrines, etc., etc. Now, because you must understand that the systems, war fighting systems, which are constant, which are costly, and which are hard to get or hard to develop, have a shelf life, very long shelf life. Let's say tomorrow, I mean, what are we talking? We are flying aircraft which were developed in the 80s, right? With 40 years old. So that is the shelf life of a system. Now it is not going to change very fast. Okay, so if I say that my data is changing very fast, it is not really completely correct information. You may do small modifications, but the heart or the root of that data or root of that architecture is not going to change for quite some time. 30 to 50 years is the shelf life we are talking. So there is a need to protect this data. And AI, what it can do, emergence of AI, like ability to get into very deep data. Okay, and tomorrow when quantum computers come on the horizon, that will make it even faster. Now, let me give you an example that they one domain of warfare is cognitive warfare also. Like we are talking, these are domains of warfare. When generally when we talk of domains, people tend to think it is army, navy, air force. These are three domains, or air, land, etc. Now it is not legacy services anymore which define domain is not defined by ownership. Domain is going to be defined by characteristics. Air is a domain, whosoever flies there. Land is a domain. Okay, sea is a domain. Surface is a domain. Subsurface is a domain. Manned aircraft is a domain. Unmanned aircraft is another domain. Cyber is a domain. Space is a domain. Okay, so we are talking of now cyber domain. AI basically data sharing, and when we talk of multi-domain operation tomorrow, everything hinges on data sharing. Because how are you going to fight in multi-domain if there is no data being shared, not only amongst services but even amongst your partners? Let's say tomorrow we have out of area contingency options. You are supposed to be capable of sharing this data even with your partners, like allies for that matter, right? Now, coming to your question, that data redundancy and reliability, you see, they have to be built into the system. That firstly, what is the reliability of data, and secondly, what is the reliance on the equipment which you are using to decipher that data, right? Now, what happens is there is a unique capability of AI. Let me just bring it. It's my thought process that when you are analyzing enemy, there is a long hard work involved in, let's say someone has to decipher, how do I plan, how do I strategize, how do I develop doctrine. So they have to look at the commanders, they have to look at the people who are formalizing it, they have to look at people. So what do I think, how do I think? So whatever is visible probably is not the real truth. If I can just draw an example, suppose I want to write a very fine document, final. I write something on paper. Let's say I have a pen and paper scenario. You would have seen I write something on paper. I say no, okay, not this way. I crumple it and throw it away. Right? I write another thought. I say no, this may not be very good to someone. I crumple it and throw it away. I keep wasting that thoughts of mine, not wasting, discarding those thoughts of mine which are original thoughts, which is the way I think originally, right? And now I'm slowly reaching an acceptable thought, a thought which is going to be acceptable to leadership, which is going to be acceptable to government, probably, which is going to be acceptable to people at large, which can sell itself. Okay. But what were my real thoughts? My real thoughts you will not find from that final paper. My real thoughts will lie in those crumpled papers. So if you want to target me cognitively, you need to know what lay in those crumpled papers. And analogy I draw to the digital age, that when I produce digitally a final document, which comes as a doctrine or a strategy or something, you have to see what went behind that. So the plethora or the real treasure of information does not lie in a document, does not so much lie in a document which gets published, but it is an unpublished domain.
Yeah.
It is in your bin, it is in your deleted documents, it is in your trash. Okay, that will tell you that how exactly was the thinking, who was thinking what, what was the pattern, etc. So that from intelligently, if you were to get information or lay your hands into that, then you can probably do a very very successful cognitive campaign. And the problem today is that with the uh, uh, with the digital kind of prowess that we have available, when I google, it gives me the published domain, right? I mean, article which is there in public domain, which is there in published. I do not yet know that what led to that article, what was the author already thinking, what was his thought process, how did it evolve. There may be so much information he may have put down. Then someone, when a draft form, somebody oh, no, let's say today I write an article for the Air Force, for example, just like you are, we are talking, okay? And in writing that article, I end up writing so much, will subsequently told to me, no, yeah, this is confidential information, you can't write that, delete this. This can't be said, okay, this may be, etc. So see, there's so much plethora of information which goes into deleted portion, okay? And what comes out is what you generally want to tell the world, but the enemy doesn't want to know which is visible. Enemy wants to know what is behind your thought process, what is behind your thinking. So you have to protect that domain. That is where, when quantum computers come and the AI empowered computers will be able to look at all this information, because after all, every day everything is there in the cloud. They say now you delete information, it's not going anywhere, you are only overwriting on top of it. It is there somewhere lurking around. Aim is just to catch that. So today I may not be able to catch all that information, but tomorrow it will be possible. Tomorrow you will be able to get this information with this quantum computers and a very high analyzing power. And you will find that it's becoming tricky. So you have to guard that information, you have to evolve reliable equipment. And what we are thinking, I mean, there is a national quantum mission now, and it's going to look at not only development of quantum computers, but even post quantum cryptography, which is becoming very very relevant these days. That how are you going to protect your data in the age of post quantum scenario, when quantum computers come. And why this PQC is getting ahead of the emergence of quantum computer, because invariably the counter to a threat comes after the threat emerges, but in this case it's leading it, because you will not be able to absorb the blow of a quantum computer. With the way, what all can they target, Adi? The diminishing line, or the blurring, or the line between front and rear has got blurred completely.
Yeah.
It's no more people who are at the front are are going to be impacted. Your power grid can be affected as deep down, as south. I mean, we have seen the impact of it. Ames went down because they wanted to see probably the health data of some of the important figures. Now why should they be wanting to know health data of, let's say, prominent figures? Because it tells you a lot of things about a person, how his health is, how he lives his life, etc. What led to those health. What my health is today is because of my lifestyle, right? That what kind of lifestyle have I led, okay? And that can tell you a lot of things, that what kind of a person I am. And if you have to target me cognitively tomorrow, it's a treasure of information. So
Yeah.
they wanted to probably access health data. The aims got affected, some power outage in one of the metros for some time. So there is so much which can be done. Now if no one is safe throughout the country between front and rear, then obviously this data needs to be protected. So it's not a empty kind of threat, or just a a regular warning that be careful of data, or people need to protect data. It's a real threat, and we need to be very, very careful about it.
So when you look at quantum and the stuff that is being tested, I think 20 kilometers quantum communication they were able to do. 100 GB laser data transfer they could do. 20 kilometers is pretty big, actually. It's one of the best in the world right now in terms of quantum transfers for the armed forces. So what we see
No,
is that there is a lot of
yeah,
development which is happening within for the next level of computing and next level of data transferring going forward, and next level of communication. Is all
yes.
this basically quantum and all that stuff? The first is the first priority is to get communication going absolutely precisely, and unbreakable communication. Is that what also one of the major priorities, if I may say?
Of course, you see what happens is communication is the when you call off communication, voice communication or data sharing, everything comes in communication, right? This quantum key distribution that you're talking of, QKD, 20 kilometers, they have there are two ways of doing it. One is through a fiber, okay, that is end to end, that the information flows through a fiber, okay, that has been tested even up to 100 kilometers, okay. And then there is a free space communication where there is no fiber in between, like satellite to ground. And China, in one of that their satellites, Mischievous satellite, okay, has demonstrated 1,000 kilometers, okay, to free space communication in QKD, okay, quantum key distribution. Now, what is quantum key distribution? Is basically it relies on photons and entanglement of photons and superposition. Two characteristics. That entanglement is that two photons very far away from each other will behave exactly in the same manner. Change in one photon will replicate change in other
Yeah.
photon. In fact, what, it defied Einstein's theory of relativity, which said that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light, and he himself called it spooky action at a distance. Because now let's say, to for the argument that if another photon lay on the surface of Mars or Sun, for example, right? I mean, Sun, that light takes 8 minutes to travel from Sun to Earth, right? But how is it that that photon will immediately get an information what happens to a photon on Earth? Okay, but this is true. So what happens is this quantum key distribution uh, is based on that if you are a waste dropped, if somebody observes your photon, that photon changes its position. And by the change of position, you will come to know that information has been waste dropped. Okay, that information is no more reliable. Okay, so nobody can intercept your information. Yes, you may lose that information, but nobody can interject wrong information and lead you away. Why communication is going to be so important? Adi, tomorrow the technologies that we are talking of, take a case, MUMTI, man unmanned teaming, or combat air teaming system. We are just because you can visualize it better. Okay, there is a fighter aircraft or a mothership, which is controlling 8 9 unmanned aircraft. How is it that syncing taking place? It's taking place only through communication, only through data sharing. If when I task an unmanned aircraft which I am controlling, how do I do it? I do it through data. And if that unmanned aircraft or that sensor sees something, how is that sensor conveying information to me? Is only through data. A satellite transmits an image how? Through data. Okay, drone sees something, it communicates with the ground station through data. And if this data is not secure, if the line of communication is not secure, then you have a problem. Okay.
Mm.
And this QKD helps achieve that. That large distances which are required in battlefield or, in all pervasiveness are yet to be achieved. But the fact is the progress has started. It will, once you have taken a step, I mean, age old, if I can use proverb, that 1,000 mile journey starts with one step. Now it's not that one starts counting that how many steps it will take and when will you finish it. The idea is, the underlying principle is that you've started walking in that direction. It's not only that you will only take step by step, somewhere you'll sprint also. So now the technology, when starts maturing and developing and one thing leads to other, it's only a question of time that when large distances will be available where you can do secure communication. And today, if I launch an unmanned vehicle, is because you don't want to put pilot or an operator at danger. It is your extension that sitting in a safe ops room kind of scenario, I can extend my arms much better. But there is nothing like, let's say, a pilot flying a machine. That means you got an edge computing capability right there in the form of a human being, which can decide quickly, which can take action, which can do a lot of things. So now, if tomorrow this communication, which is, I am replicating myself to be available in that unmanned platform, providing that capability only through communication. If you are going to make it completely autonomous, okay, that it does everything on its own, yes, of course, you can define the laws very clearly, you can task it very clearly, you can precisely say what it supposed to do, and then you can leave it for a while, but it will not serve its purpose completely the way it can do if it was in communication with me. And also this myth of expendable drones, that they are expendable, is going out of the window, because they are slowly becoming costlier and costlier. Slowly you will reach a point of diminishing returns, in the sense that if the value, you want to make it more and more autonomous, and if the value of the drone almost becomes like an aircraft, then you can't afford to lose it, no? Then it's not that you just launched a kamikaze drone. Every drone can't be kamikaze. It has to do business, come back and be able to do 8 to 10, 12, 20 missions for me, because it's costing.
Yeah.
And in war fighting, if that drone or if that unmanned vehicle, let's say it's an ISR enabled unmanned vehicle, it's giving me intelligence, it's doing surveillance for me, it's doing reconnaissance for me. And if all that is important for me to fight the war, then can I afford to lose that asset? Let's say there is an unmanned air vehicle which is, providing information or to some of my strike packages falling. Okay, it is providing information or imagery to very, very potent aircraft which are going to address those targets. Then, just when my 60, 70 aircraft are approaching their decision point, can I afford to lose this UAV? I cannot. Okay, so how will
Yeah.
you keep it safe? You will have to keep the communication safe, because communication, if intercepted, can lead to a lot of stuff. It is even dicey if someone can mislead the communication. One is interruption. One is that, okay, just to amplify my point, I am sitting in fighter aircraft and I have an unmanned aircraft. Okay, and let's say I'm fighting you. Okay, I designated that Adi is the target. You are able to intercept that communication and modify it to say that no, GS Bedi is the target. Unmanned vehicle will do what it is told to do, right? What it thinks is the authentic information. You have modified that information because you had access to the information. And if you modify it, that same guy can attack me, and it is not that it is something impossible. You do have a medical condition, in which your own antibodies start attacking you. I mean, very rare, but it does happen that, they start taking your own organs as foreign bodies, and they start attacking you because some wrong signals go at a time that they think that you're the enemy. So what happens is this particular communication, I mean, just to bring it into the warfare, you have to guard this communication, that whatever you are communicating with your warfighter, with your extended hand, is not intercepted, cannot be modified. Laser that you talk of, laser has the advantage that it's very, very pointed, information. And even in RF communication, they are talking of using nanometer of wavelengths, in terahertz frequency, near infrared a band, which is beyond visual band. So the beam will be very narrow. So it will be definitely very, very difficult to intercept the beam, because you won't know where exactly that beam lies. It's not a omnidirectional transmission, which takes place like a Vivid Bharati or something, that anywhere you can intercept it. It is very directional. It is very, very pointed, but it is there. You see, it is just question of someone, getting hold of it. So if I know where the asset is, and if I know where the ground station is, it may be difficult but not impossible to interpolate as to where and how that communication is kind of progressing.
You know,
So
I understood this, sir. My last, important question: what are the next steps that India is looking at, sir?
Next steps in which way?
In
Like,
in this whole tech game, let me just broaden the discussion up a little bit, because we've been talking about AI, quantum, and this and that. Let's broaden it up in terms of tech integration and in terms of tech implementation, sir. What are we looking at as far as the Indian Armed Forces is concerned? What
so
are the
we
first
are
priorities?
looking at, see, first priority or is integration. You know what happens is nowadays or tomorrow's warfare, like I said, will not be determined by individual tanks or artillery guns or aircraft or ships or submarines.
Mm,
It will be integration of all this, right? How, like I said, domain is domain, whosoever is using it. If there are Air Force UAVs or naval UAVs or Army UAVs, the domains here are not Army, Navy, Air Force. The domain here is an A domain, unmanned domain. So, is this information from all these sources going to be integrated and help in obtaining a clear picture? They are working towards that. I mean, armed forces are working towards that. Okay. And similarly, there has to be trust built in sharing information. Today, let's say Air Force may not trust that, it's very valuable information. I don't know how does the Army or Navy system operate. I do not trust that system with that information, because all these systems were developed individually, probably by the services. We
mm,
have our own FNet, there is Akashti system, Trigon system, etc. The very fact names are different means they are developed differently, right? Okay, there is not single overarching architecture. Now, over a period of time, I think there is a need to work that how this information is going to be integrated, that you present a comprehensive picture for decision making. The speed of information, the velocity of information, and the velocity of decision are going to be very, very important. It's not necessarily linear in direction that how many more ships or how many more aircraft or how many more land troops do you have, because the wars are changing their characteristics. They are going to be long drawn wars, and long drawn war is tiring. Sustainment is another issue. Tomorrow, like, Alexander said that army marches on its stomach. What is stomach? Now the definition of stomach has changed. Now the stomach is energy. Now the stomach is chips. Now the stomach is rare earth materials. Stomach is software updates. Stomach is information. So what happens is, if army has to march on its stomach, to draw that analogy, that is, if armed forces have to have their stomach full, it is stomach full with this kind of food items, not literally meaning bread and water. So all this is going to be available. So you got to have accessibility to this information, wherever it's available. So be it space based. Now you said what are we thinking? We lacked space information. So space based surveillance program is a key point. SBS3 program. It's an open domain. 52 satellites in LEO, MEO, GEO, etc. So they will enhance our capability to quite an extent. Okay, communication satellite GSAT series. Again, information open domain. There is a naval satellite GSAT 7A, probably Air Force satellite B, or naval satellite. I mean, Army satellite B, Air Force satellite C. That means individual services probably wrote their individual requirements. Okay, now what happens is, these, are they going to provide information only to Army, Navy, Air Force to whom they belong? No, that's a national asset. You have to have national resilience. So coordination and all that, integration of all these things will be of paramount importance. Okay, tomorrow you buy, you saw Rafales now. Okay, acquisition of Rafales. Okay, there is acquisition by Air Force, is acquisition by Navy. So how will these Rafales be? I mean, how do we expect these Rafales to operate in their Air Force Navy domain or in the air domain, and providing integrated information to whomsoever it is available? Air Force Rafale will provide information to naval commander, wherever it does something, and vice versa. So this integration of sensors, integration of warfighting machinery, in whichever way possible, is very, very important. And we don't need to change very high level structures for this. Another problem comes is that when we talk of integrated data sharing information, we start thinking of changing the whole structure. There is no need to do that. In the current existing infrastructure, you need to just make your procedures. These are all procedural things. And sometimes we await that, unless some structural reforms take place, integration cannot take place, which is a fallacy. It is not so. Your integration is just meeting up or marrying your equipment. Is not really creating different structures, because now you're making it more complicated. Idea is to simplify things, not to make it
Yeah.
more complicated, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing, no? So everybody kind of thinks there is a uh, it's just a very different scenario than what we envisaged when we looked at a lot of technology, let's say 5 years ago. I mean, the kind of stuff that is happening today, it's extremely different. Nobody, I think, very few people actually visioned it. Ki you'll be going in that direction. Yesterday night, you won't believe it. I saw some pictures that were probably leaked out of the India-Bangladesh border or something like that. There was a dog patrolling, robot dog patrolling the border. So probably he's doing the night rounds to check whatever uska task hoga. I don't
Yeah.
know what he's trying to do, but he was. I mean, there were apna troops be there, but this thing was going around in a particular area. Now that just tells you that there's a lot of sublimation that can be done by genetics, robotics, AI, and of course, in terms of communication, the quantum and everything like that. So it's very interesting how things are going to change. um, Thank you, sir. This has been an enlightening session. A lot of people see, people like me are not technically educated. I'm not even one tenth of the kind of stuff that you talk about, sir. But aapka explanations are pretty simple, so I guess people are going to be able to understand this whole thing. Thank you so much for always doing that.
No, thank you very much, Adi. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And to the audience, please share your thoughts, your comments. What do you guys think about what sir said? Any particular time uh, in the video that you find that you want to put a comment, just put the time slot there so that, okay, at this point in time, sir said this. This is my particular comment on it, or this is my addition to it, or subtraction to it, agreement, disagreement, whatever it is. Please put the time slot so that we know what you're talking about. And of course, like, subscribe, and share this with your friends, families, and whoever you think will benefit out of this. And don't forget to support the channel. Namaskar.
Thank you. Namaskar.